Thanks for tuning in to Golf Talk on Proline TV as we preview and give our picks for this week's event on the PGA Tour, the Phoenix Open, the Waste Management Phoenix Open. And this is one sponsorship and tournament that has definitely enjoyed a nice partnership over the years. They're making a boatload of cash here in Phoenix during Super Bowl week. And of course, Brady Cannon joining us. And of course, you can catch Brady and his weekly articles that preview the event every Tuesday, I believe it is, Brady, at golf.com.
Yes, sir. Just came out moments ago at golf.com.
Yeah. I always like to hear that because then that means I got to go look for it and see if I can. If I can.
It's always right about this time, right before we come on Tuesdays is typically when they post it.
Okay. Well, here it is.
Yep. There you go.
So there you go. So the 7 picks for, and a matter of fact, we have those same 7.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not releasing different stuff to different people.
Well, if I don't win that one, I'm going to win over here.
Right.
I got 50 picks.
Not that that's ever been employed in the gambling space before.
No, not at all. So you can check that out over at golf.com. Okay. We're also going to give our picks, of course, and we'll show you all of them. And we're going to go through everything, including the golf course, TPC Scottsdale. And this is a golf course that is very familiar to fans because of the greatest show on grass at TPC Scottsdale. And I mean, they get a ton of fans. It's just a huge event. But let's keep this in mind because it's not a signature event and hasn't been for the past couple of years. It was in the debut year of the signature events. I'm not sure exactly why they changed it. I don't know if you do, Brady, but if you look at it, there are only, I believe, 3 of the world's top 14 ranked players that will be playing this week.
Yeah, the field's down a little bit, but it's still pretty good. And you've got world number 1, Scotty Scheffler, of course, Sahith Theegala, Justin Thomas. There's a lot of big names, Sam Burns. But it's interesting. I mean, I don't remember a tournament where Scotty Scheffler or the favorites odds were this low in a long time. He's less than 3-1 to win this week. And it reminds me of Larry Bird showing up to the 3-point shooting contest and asking everybody which one of you guys is going to finish second. There are actually betting markets out there, quote unquote, without Scheffler. Like you can bet this week, take Scotty out of the field and who's going to finish the highest. There are those markets readily.
It's not a bad way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how good he is, especially. And I
know it's amazing.
I get it. I do. I really get it. I mean, there are some events with Scheffler, just like in the old days with Tiger, where you go, okay, if I wagered that low on golfers, if I did that, if I did 3-1, if I did 4-1, this would be a week where I would go, okay, yeah, I would take Scotty at 3-1 if I did that, because we'll get into the reasons why. But yeah, I mean, it's this golf course is just tailor-made for him.
Well, he's actually, I mean, I've seen actually one shop that offered 3-1. I think the consensus price is less at about plus 280.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, some people, I believe, feel that is still good value, which is crazy.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not saying they're crazy. I don't necessarily disagree with them. It's just crazy to think that a price that low is still a good price, where maybe it's even providing a little bit of an edge. And I'll tell you, it was not too long ago, just in the beginning of December, for the second straight year successfully, I bet on Scotty Scheffler to win the Hero World Challenge. And in 2023, I think he was 4-1. Okay. And that's the Tiger Woods Invitational down in the Bahamas. Yeah. Really good field of players, but there's only 20 guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're going to give me Scotty Scheffler at 4-1, which is basically the same price as he is in a field of 150 guys. I said, yeah, I'll take him. And then this year, just, a month and a half ago or so, he was plus 225 and I still took him. And, it was an odds maker here in town that said he should have been minus 225. I mean, Scotty Scheffler at better than 2-1 against 19 other guys as clearly the best player in the world, I didn't think that was bad value. Now, I didn't land on him this week because, it's kind of the same reasoning as I had last week. He's just getting started. That was the first time we've seen him since December, the hand injury, and he still finished top 10. I mean, can you believe this guy? He finished top 10, including the wins, the runner-ups, everything last year, 18 times. That's what we should be doing, Greg. Cancel the show. The word is you just bet Scotty Scheffler to finish top 10 every week.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, top 10, right? But I imagine what those odds are.
Minus 400 this week.
Yeah, that's just, you're not going to over
really
the long
tough.
run.
But if you've got the bankroll,
that's the thing.
It doesn't happen all that. I mean, think how much money you would have made last year having finished top 10 18 times. He only did not finish top 10 last season 3 times.
Okay. So there you go. You're putting up a lot of money, like you said. You have to have a lot of money, though, to make the money.
Right.
Not everybody does. But the point is, though, even at 3-1 or whatever it is, 280 at this point, it's again, it's not a bad play. We're not telling you not to take it if you want to go down that route. But it is what it is. And we're going to try to see if we can find you a little bit better value here. So let's actually pop up. Where are we? Here we go. Let's pop up our wagers before we get started here. Matter of fact, there are the odds right there on Scheffler at 280. Yeah. And then here's our picks. So Brady's got a full gamut of picks. He's got his outrights, his top 20 finish, and the head-to-head matchups right here. And matter of fact, the only one on the list that would be considered different from top 20 to outrights to head-to-head is taking Andrew Novak over Ben Griffin, because you even have post on here as well as here and here. So,
I pretty much play my top 20 finish plays are 99% of the time identical to my outrights. Sometimes I might deviate, maybe even play a top 30 or a top 40, but it's a little bit of a hedge bet for me. Okay. If the guy's not going to win, and first of all, obviously I feel strongly enough about him that he has a chance to win. Well, certainly I feel, it would make sense that I feel he has a chance to finish top 20. And as you and I have discussed, and as you can see there on the graphic, my lowest amount of risk is in the outright market. But for a top 20 finish, I will bet 2 or 3 times that amount in that market, and then a full unit in the head-to-head matchups. The head-to-head matchups are your best chance to win. You essentially have a 50-50 shot right there. The top 20 finish, obviously you have a better chance than an outright win. So I adjust the amount of my wagers accordingly.
All right, let's go through your picks, and we have to get through the first. Actually, if we look at it here, out of this first group, my top pick is going to be Justin Thomas. You're going to go with Sam Burns, and they're really good picks. The only difference is you're getting double the value with Burns over Thomas. Thomas is destined to win here. It's just a matter of time. I mean, he's 90 under par in his last 7 years here. 90.
Yeah.
So he's going to win here at some point. And we'll find out. By the way, keep in mind too that he's obviously a major winner. And that's part of some of the trends that we have here. Matter of fact, I know that if you look at some of the winners, let's see, 10 of the last 12 have either a major win or a player's win on their resume, including 9 winners. Including 9 major winners. So you've got either 12 with either, but 9 of them are major winners. Koepka, Matsuyama, Scheffler are 2-time winners in the last 9. So interesting. I'm not sure if that's just a coincidence, or I think maybe some of it also has to do with the fact that you sort of talked about it with the hero. Scheffler, top 10 last week, full field, signature event, all the best players. But here, it's a little bit different. Again, only 3 of the top 14 world ranked players. So even though there are good players, every year you're going to have a good number of players, top ranked players who aren't here. And that does make it a little bit more advantageous for some of those really big time players, champions like Scotty Scheffler and the ones that we mentioned to win here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Certainly the cream rising to the top. I also think it speaks to the golf course that this is, a golf course. I think probably the main skill set you want to look at this week is things that pertain to ball striking, strokes gained approach, strokes gained ball striking, strokes gained off the tee. And typically, courses that cater to ball striking strength are big time golf courses. You and I were talking off air. Probably the biggest correlated course for me this week is Bay Hill, where they play the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Scotty Scheffler's won there twice. He's won here twice.
Yeah.
Those are both, premier ball striking courses. And so I think when you have courses that, lean so heavily on that type of skill set, you're going to produce some of the best players in the world. I mean, that's one of, if not the most important skill sets you can have in your arsenal is ball striking. And this is certainly a course where if you don't have it, you're not going to do well here. Some courses you can kind of have a hot week putting or a hot week doing this or that. It's got to be ball striking or nothing here in Phoenix. And another thing, you talked about Justin Thomas, how well he's done here. Absolutely. If you look at the leaderboards of the Phoenix Open for the last 15 years or so, I mean, it's incredible how many of the same names pop up. And what I'm getting at here is it's a very predictive tournament. It's like the Masters. It's like the Sony Open. There's a handful of tournaments on the PGA Tour calendar where guys that play well here typically do so year in and year out. Course history repeats itself over and over again at the Phoenix Open. And Justin Thomas is a perfect case of that. Scotty Scheffler, Hideki Matsuyama, Brooks Koepka, all these guys that continue to do well year after year are evidence of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, matter of fact, 8 of the last 11 first-time winners had scored a previous top 10 prior to winning here.
Right.
And one of those, and it's interesting because out of those 11, 2 of them, Koepka and Kyle Stanley, were making just their first appearance. And Koepka did it in 2015. Stanley did it in 2012. And the other player was Kevin Stadler, and he had scored a previous 11th. Mm-hmm. So some sort of positive experience helps here, no question. So keep that in mind. And rankings is also something that's interesting because only one of the last 17 winners ranked outside the top 100 prior to winning here. That was Kevin Stadler, who I mentioned back in. He was 127th. And I thought this was interesting. It took me a while to do this a couple of years ago, but since keeping track of world rankings back in 1986, the only first-time winner of this event who ranked in the top 10 before winning here was Mark Calcavecchia in 1989. He ranked 10th. Calcavecchia is also the first player that registered a ranking. And of course, Scheffler, I think he ranked 15th, his first win. But then his second win, obviously, he was in the top 10. So even with all the major winners we talked about, that is something that not only are they not ranked outside the top 100, but they're not ranked inside the top 10. So it's like, hey, if you're ranked somewhere between like 11 and 99, that limits the field of our options to like 80, but still it gives you an indication of something, whatever that is. I have no idea, but it is a little bit interesting.
Well, I think all the trends you're talking about there, they all we're talking about this course being very repeatable, that history repeats itself. And guys that play well here typically do so year in and year out. We're talking about how many major champions have won here. We're talking about guys that rank, relatively high in the world rankings. And it goes back to what I'm saying. The emphasis on ball striking is going to produce world-class players as winners here. I think that's what all of that is telling you.
Okay, now Burns, your top pick. He's made 13 straight cuts. He's got 12 of those top 35s, 9 of those top 15s, a couple top 5s and a runner-up. He was 22nd last week at Pebble. And his last 2 performances here out of his 6 all told are his best 2, combined 29 under par, finishing 3rd and 6th.
Yeah, absolutely. Third and sixth here in his last two trips. You mentioned 22nd at Pebble Beach last week, not too shabby. Had a top 10 finish in Maui to begin the year. And it's important to know about Sam Burns going forward in your handicap and this week as well. That top 10 finish in Maui came on his preferred putting surface, which is Bermuda grass. Okay, this guy is from Louisiana, went to LSU, where they have a lot of Bermuda grass down in the South. And he is, most of his success has come on that surface. And here we are back again in Phoenix on Bermuda grass putting surfaces. Now, a little bit of a, what do you call it? A caveat to the Bermuda grass surface this week, because it's wintertime, they are dormant. So it's a Bermuda grass base, and they are overseeded with bent grass. So the primary surface is still Bermuda. I wouldn't call it, it's certainly not like the Bermuda we're seeing in Hawaii, but I think Bermuda is primarily the surface you want to use in your handicap this week, because it's translated into Burns' success. And I'm not saying that's the only reason he's done well here. But we do see a lot of Bermuda grass, guys that are good on Bermuda grass having success here, like Scotty Scheffler, another guy from Texas. So I do believe, even though it's dormant this time of year, it is the surface that I used in my handicap this week. And like I say, Sam Burns has done well here before, did well on Bermuda grass earlier this season. And then you look at the correlated courses. I mentioned Bay Hill. He's finished 9th in the past at Bay Hill. Olympia Fields, where they played the BMW Championship in 2020 and 2023. He's finished 20th there, 15th there. 20th at Southern Hills, another correlated course for me, where they played the PGA Championship in 2022, where guess who, Greg, won? Justin Thomas. So a lot of the same names popping up on all the leaderboards here at the correlated courses and in Phoenix. The Summit Club, where they played the CJ Cup in 2022. Sam Burns finished 7th there. And then also the Houston Open, where they've played, where they have held it at Memorial Park since 2020. Sam Burns has also finished 7th twice at that golf course. So he's done well on the correlated courses, done well here, and in pretty darn good current form. I didn't want to go all the way to the top with Scotty, so he was the shortest priced guy I landed on this week.
And again, just to go over those courses, if you want to jot them down, it's Bay Hill, it's Memorial Park for the Houston Open, it's Olympia Fields for the 20 and 23 BMW Championship, it's Royal Troon, last year's Open Championship, Southern Hills, the 2022 PGA, as you mentioned, of course, and the Summit Club 2021 CJ Cup year. And also the Nicklaus course, which is one of the 2 or 3, depending on, of course, how it's changed at the Amex. But you just look at Nicklaus, it's always just one round each of the years that they go to Amex.
Another desert track too, right?
Yep.
So they have that in common. And the Summit Club here in Las Vegas, another desert course. So yeah, and you look at the leaderboards of all those tournaments, and you see a lot of the same names popping up. And I landed on a lot of them this week, because not only have we talked about history repeating itself at TPC Scottsdale, I think it makes sense that these same guys, are doing well on these similar golf courses.
Okay, now also here around this list, Tom Kim was someone I was thinking about. He is just so hard to predict. That's the problem. Just looking over his last 7 events, he has 3 missed cuts and a 65, but he also has 2 runner-ups and a 7th last week. He's just too unpredictable for me. So anything could happen. Maybe you're lucky, you hit him when he's having a good week. Strzok obviously is having a great go at it right now at 40-1. You see there, Thigala 40-1. We know how close he's come to win here.
And his history's been very good here.
It has. The problem is he really hasn't been playing very well.
Right.
He's just been okay. And so that's a little bit of an issue. And someone has got to tell me, okay, before we move through here, what is this? What's this Corey Conners stuff? I mean, seriously. I mean, he must be right now the most overrated golfer as far as odds are concerned. The guy has won at one golf tournament, one specific event, one golf course. And it's just, especially this week, if you look at Corey Conners this week, he's never finished in the top 15 in 5 trips of this event. His last 2 events are 65 and a missed cut. I don't get why he's constantly in this range every week. of like 40, 45 to 1. At least win one more event outside. I forget what the event he won at twice.
Valero Texas Open, I believe.
Win one time outside there, and then we'll talk. But the odds that he has is now sometimes he's on a hot streak, and he could do that. He can get to these streaks where he's like 25 straight cuts, and out of those 25 straight cuts, there are 20 were in the top 25, and all that without winning. But he's not even playing particularly well right now, and he's never done well with this golf course. So I just don't understand. Again, I know I'm going off on someone that's irrelevant to our conversation, but he's just somebody that I just don't get why his odds are usually this low or even this week.
Well, I considered him heavily actually this week, and he had a really good run going at the Sentry to begin the season in Kapalua, and then I believe it was on Saturday he just absolutely went south and really played his way out of the tournament. The deal, and you're absolutely right, he's only won at one golf course in his career, and I think that's part of what ultimately kept me off of him. But if you're talking about ball striking like we have, he is absolutely the consummate ball striker. And that's the problem with Corey Conners is that's kind of all he does well. He can't putt worth a lick. And that's why he doesn't win that often. He'll get hot because the ball striking, will be off the charts, and then he can't hole a putt. But you look at what he's done. No, he's never had a great finish here, but he's been as high as 17th, and he's never missed a cut. At Bay Hill, 3rd, 11th, 21st, 18th. Olympia Fields, 10th. Royal Troon, 25th. The Summit Club, 23rd. Houston, 24th. So it just goes to what we're talking about. His ball striking always has him in the hunt. Maybe he is the ultimate top 20 finish play, Greg, but I'm with you. And I also don't see him winning against such a strong field. The Valero Texas Open, that's against a weaker field, right? So, yeah, ultimately I did not land on him for a lot of the reasons we're kind of sharing here. But the guy is one hell of a ball striker, and he's probably going to make the cut again.
Well, maybe if he can improve it, it's really what has made Scotty into an elite player has been his ability to improve his putting. Last year, it's scary for the rest of the PGA Tour that he did that. But maybe Corey, if he can just get a little bit better. Look, the other players are similar. Will Zalatoris, we can name a bunch of them. Maybe that's all that's preventing Corey from being maybe a top 10 player. Is his putting.
He shows up every now and then. He's done and surprisingly, a course that is so difficult to putt, he's done very well at the Masters. You remember at Oak Hill a couple of years ago when Koepka won the PGA Championship, Corey Conners, I think, finished top 10. It's just he's a good player, but he just can't find the winner's circle, and I don't think it's going to happen here again this week.
Now, a player that I was thinking of taking but did not was Siwoo Kim. I like the way that he seems to be improving on this golf course every time he plays here. So it was someone I was, and he's also coming off a 12th at Pebble. But in this group, you took a player that is like stone cold right now.
Yes.
And that is Matthew Fitzpatrick.
I know.
And speaking of players who's made changes, not putting, but this is another player that goes out, wins a major, and decides, I got to make some changes. I think he wanted more power in his game. Well, it hasn't worked out for him since then. And matter of fact, he has one top 20 in his last 12 events. He has played well here, 28 under par in 3 events, including 10th in his first go out of it. Never finished worse than 29th. So if any event could maybe kickstart his season and get him going, I guess it'd be this one.
That's what I'm kind of banking on. No, he hasn't had a top 10 finish since last June, and he has improved his distance. Absolutely. And I don't necessarily blame him for trying to improve that part of his game, because that's where the money is these days. If you can't hit it long, you're at a disadvantage. But you're right. It hasn't really come full circle yet for Fitzpatrick ever since he won the US Open. But hey, there you go. He checks that box as well. A major champion, right? We know this guy is a big time class player, and pretty much, Greg, every guy on my card this week fits the profile of ball striker and putter. And that's exactly what Matt Fitzpatrick is when he's at his best. He's played his way out of the top 50 in the official world golf rankings. That's how bad he's been as of late. But like you say, he's played very, very well here. I took a shot with Victor Hovland last week, and he was not too bad at Pebble, a course that's been very kind to him, and the form has not been good. And so I'm kind of doing the same thing here with Matt Fitzpatrick. He's been 15th, 29th, and 10th in 3 trips to Phoenix. At Bay Hill, he's finished 14th and 9th. He's been 6th and runner-up at Olympia Fields, 5th at Southern Hills for that PGA Championship before he went on to win the U.S. Open, and 13th here at the Summit Club in Las Vegas. So, he has everything makes sense except for the current form. So I'm going to take a shot with Fitzpatrick, and hey, at least maybe he can cash that top 20 finish bet for us.
And he is just a little bit off. I mean, 5 of his last 7 results are in the top 35.
Yeah.
So that means he's like a round away from getting into that top 20, and then a couple of rounds from competing for a win. So he's not that far off. He's a talented player. And that's why when I look at the rankings each week, it still stuns me when I look at some of the top 20 players. I'm like, how is that guy in the top 20? How is that guy? It's because guys like Fitzpatrick, Spieth, and I can go down the line about 5, 6, 7 really world-class players that are nowhere to be found in the top 20 for whatever variety of reasons, injuries, whatever. And it just has opened the door for players who probably shouldn't be ranked in the top 20 right now that are. And Fitzpatrick's one of them. So hopefully he'll get his game going, because again, it's great for the game with these star-studded, talented players would get their A game going, because we can't have Scottie Scheffler winning everything. And every time Scottie is in a situation where he's up there and he's ready to win, I'm sick and tired of watching other players just wilt. I mean, I want somebody.
I remember a guy who wore red on Sundays that would kind of do that to people.
Yeah. All right. Yep. Let's now move along here to the next group. And we're going to go with a couple of guys at the top. My second pick and one of your picks, Billy Horschel. So they're both 60-1 here. And oh, by the way, see what I've done is I go over my list now, and I have my players. And I've said this before. I'm not going to pick players that you have, and I have enough options that if there's a couple of guys you like, I'm going to disregard them, like Burns and a few others this week. Horschel is one of them too. Anyway, and the other thing though is if you take a look at it, the course similarities, that's like my last checklist. I'll say, okay, give me your similar courses just before I make my picks after I see yours. And then I go, okay, let me check that out as a last sort of tool to decide what to do. And one of the players that was borderline was Kurt Kitayama. And then I noticed you had Bay Hill as your top. And I went, okay, there you go. Yeah, I'll put him in now. Now, look, Kurt really ended last season strong. He has not gotten off to a good start so far this season. But keep this in mind. When he won Bay Hill, he was coming off a miscut. So he's coming off a miscut at Farmers, meaning it didn't bother him then. So I don't think it'll bother him now. And he's played here twice, both top 25s, 8th last year at 13 under par. The model's good for him as well. So yeah, that was the last one to put me over the top, was to put him in my list, knowing that he had won Bay Hill. And also, as I mentioned, 2 actually other players. Now I see Poston's name has just popped up here in that territory. You have both Poston and Horschel at 60-1. Horschel started off at 90-1, dropped to 60-1 in a matter of minutes, and that really wasn't a surprise based on a number of factors I'm sure that you'll talk about.
Yeah, I was actually lucky to get him at 80. And that same book where I got him at 80-1, I saw earlier today had dropped to 70. Most of what I'm seeing out there is in the neighborhood of 60 to 70-1. But yeah, I had a rogue 80 pop up on Monday, and I certainly grabbed that because, like you say, this guy pretty much checks every single box that I'm looking at this week. The consummate ball striker. I mean, that's always been Billy Horschel's game. Absolutely is ball striking. And he's also become a very, very good putter. He ranks 3rd, I think it is, in this field. Yeah, 3rd in this field over the last 36 rounds for strokes gained putting on Bermuda grass. And being a Florida Gator, growing up in that part of the country, always does well at the Honda Classic. This guy is certainly a Bermuda grass putter. He's done extremely well here at the Phoenix Open in the past, and he comes off of maybe the best season of his career, where he had 7 top 10 finishes, including a win. And oh, by the way, runner-up at Royal Troon in the British Open, again, one of our correlated courses. At TPC Scottsdale, 11th, 6th, and 9th. At Bay Hill, 20th, 13th, runner-up. 7th at the Summit Club, 7th at Memorial Park in Houston. And he comes off of a 9th place finish last week at Pebble Beach, where he was 3rd in the field for strokes gained approach. So everything seems to be clicking pretty well for Billy Horschel right now. And I know I'm not alone. A lot of people like him this week, and because it makes a ton of sense.
And keep in mind, too, that win you were talking about, the one that he won over in Europe, the BMW PGA Championship.
Yeah.
That was a playoff win, staring down Rory McIlroy, as it was Lawrence, Horschel, and McIlroy. They got rid of Lawrence, and then it was Horschel and McIlroy, and Horschel beat him. So yeah, that's not easy to do.
No, not at all. I mean, like I say, I think, between where we are right now and the beginning of last year, I think that's the best he's ever played in his career.
And remember, I was going over, okay, major winner or you won a players. Well, you know what? If Horschel wins, I'll be able to add if you've won a tour championship.
There you go.
Which is a big event.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it shows you Billy, and look, he's 20th in the world. I don't think he's ever been this high before. And if he were to win this week, well, just imagine where he might land. So he's getting to that point, and I think this would be a big opportunity for him to prove whether or not he can be that type of player. And it certainly looks like he's headed that way, but we'll see. Poston's another guy you like.
Yeah. JT Poston got him at 66-1. And this is a guy that fits my mold again. Excellent Bermuda grass putter, 10th in this field for strokes gained putting on Bermuda grass over the last 36 rounds. He's played very well at TPC Scottsdale in the past, 11th, 26th, and 23rd here in prior trips. He's got top 25 finishes at both Olympia Fields and Memorial Park. He ranks inside the top 50 in this field for strokes gained off the tee, and he's in the top 25 for strokes gained on the par fours that measure 400 to 500 yards over the last 36 rounds. And oh, by the way, few weeks ago at the American Express, he opened with a 62 on the Nicklaus Tournament course. Again, one of our correlated courses. And he was red hot heading into this season. He closed out the fall swing with a win right here in Las Vegas. And then at his home course, the RSM Classic in Sea Island, he finished 5th. So, the four and another good finish last week. I think he was 22nd at Pebble Beach. The current form looks good. The history looks good here at Scottsdale. The correlated courses looks good. 66-1 might be a little light. I'd probably rather see him in the neighborhood of 80, but again, he's another guy that I think has a very good shot this week and a proven winner who has won multiple times on tour.
All right. A couple of players on my list are here. And, My decision to go with Cam Young as one of my picks this week is more of just a little bit of a gut feeling. He played really well here last year. I know his game has been off, not where you want it to be, but he has had good results at Bay Hill. By the way, I checked out; he was 3rd in that 2022 PGA.
Yeah, right.
And remember Nick Taylor when he won last year? It's funny. I was going over this. And I don't know how I landed on this. I think I was like, you know what? I know Cam's not playing well. How was Nick Taylor playing last year when he won? And I checked it out and get this, how eerily similar this is. Cam Young's last 3 events coming in here are 72nd, miscut, 8th. Nick Taylor's last 3 events coming into his win last year, 71st, missed cut, 7th. I mean, crazy. I was looking at that. I was like, okay, because I was thinking of him anyway. And I saw that. I was all right, I just got to put him in.
Yeah.
I just think it's a gut thing. I know he's not playing well, but I think the golf course is really a golf course that should fit his game. So that's why I decided to put him in there. And of course, I also went with Ricky. I've been going with Ricky lately. I know he didn't finish well over the weekend, but he got off to a good start. I think he's playing better. And this is just a really good golf course for him.
Won here before.
Yes, he's got a win here before, so I decided, okay, I'm going to stick with him while his odds remain high. As long as they remain high, I'll keep hoping that he'll get the win while they're high. So that's the reason I went with Young and Fowler.
Yeah, no, I don't really disagree at all. Fowler certainly makes a bunch of sense, and Cam Young, definitely a ball striker. You just have to time it right. Is it going to be one of those weeks where he's, flirting with the top 5 and possibly winning, or is it going to be one of those weeks when he, misses the cut and just looks awful? It seems to be feast or famine with Cam Young.
What do you think about Stevens? Because I was considering him. I don't like the fact he's only played here once, but he was 28th last year, which is solid. He's coming off a 17th at Pebble, 2nd at Farmers. Right. His last 3, he was actually in his last 8 rounds, he's actually 3rd in the overall model, strokes gained model, which is really good. So again, I didn't do it, but I was real close to. What do you think about Sam Stevens?
Not the greatest putter in the world. And putting is very important at this course historically. I wouldn't call it a birdie fest. When you have a birdie fest, it kind of be another word for a birdie fest is sometimes a putting contest, right? I don't term TPC Scottsdale and the Waste Management Phoenix Open as a birdie fest at all. I think the winning score this week is projected to be in the neighborhood of 18 under. It's kind of a typical tour, a solid, difficult tour event type score. I think that's probably what we're looking at here. But these greens, there hasn't been a lot of rain. I know it's a desert, but we get rain in the desert as well. But there hasn't been hardly any rain here in Las Vegas or in the Phoenix Scottsdale area in quite some time. And these greens, and maybe even more so this year, typically play firm and fast. So, that's probably the hardest type of surface to not only hit greens in regulation, but to also putt. And Sam Stevens, very good ball striker. He fits that profile for sure. But I think the putter is where he tends to let people down.
Okay. Now, also in this grouping here, there are 3 players. Matter of fact, you have Novak, as we mentioned, in a matchup with Griffin. Mm-hmm. I have Novak as one of my picks. I just could not take him. 8th in his only appearance last year, coming off a 13 and a 3rd in his last 2 appearances this year. His game is as good as it's ever been, and he still had a good 75 to 1. And then I also took Glover and Mitchell, and Mitchell also. I checked late. He has played well before at Bay Hill. Also was 3rd in that CJ Cup 21 event, so that checked a list. And Glover, how about this for Glover? Glover, by the way, he's made 12 of 15 cuts here, which is nice. Only 2 top 20s, though. So he's one of those that does not have a previous top 10. That worried me. But the reason I decided to do it is odds are high here. As you can see, they're 80 to 1 here. 3rd at Pebble coming in. And that's kind of important because if you look at it, I checked this out. In the last 3 times, Lucas Glover has a good finish like that, his 3rd place finish. So the last 3 times he's accomplished that. His next event, he finished 3rd. So the last time he finished 3rd, he finished 3rd. The last time he finished 1st, he finished 1st. The last time before that, he had finished 4th. He finished 6th and 5th. Meaning the last 3 times he's coming off a top 5, he's followed it up with another top 5. So he's all of a sudden become streaky later on in his career. And I figured, well, okay, I'll go with that, especially considering he's made a lot of cuts here and is maybe just a little bit away, maybe just being on top of his game. Maybe he hasn't been on top of his game since he's been here. Now he seems to be, at least last week. So I figured at the odds, why not throw Lucas Glover into the mix?
Yeah, a guy that apparently rides the momentum. Another guy that has, absolutely been defined his entire career as a ball striker. The big problem for Lucas Glover has always been putting. I mean, he is maybe one of the worst putters in the world at certain times of his career, quite honestly. And that's probably
and how strange it is. And then he goes out and wins a U.S. Open, which is supposed to epitomize great putting.
Yeah, and ball striking.
Yeah, sure.
but that's probably what has led to his, lack of complete success here in Phoenix. Is I imagine it's the putter that's probably ultimately let him down. But no, with the way he is such a ball striker, he of course makes sense around here. And riding the wave of a good finish last week. You mentioned Andrew Novak. I looked at him long and hard this week. I don't know if he's ready to win a PGA Tour event this week or just yet. But he's awful close, and he's shown. I mean, he had a great year last year. He got on a heater around this same time of the year last year, and he is kind of like maybe the next Corey Connors, where his game is 1,000% ball striking. And we've seen him collapse at Torrey Pines. We saw him melt down a little bit last week at Pebble, but again, now he's at a golf course where ball striking is paramount, and he's absolutely a candidate for that type of thing.
Yeah, he actually got started in that run you're talking about in this event last year when he finished 8th, then followed up with an 8th in Mexico, and then followed that up with a 9th at the Old Honda. So that was just 3 straight top 10s, and it started at this time of year. So yeah, maybe that's also something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he's gotten off to good starts. The West Coast swing has been kind to him for sure, and I hope it is again this week.
There's Jordan. We hope he'll get his game going after the injury. We saw him last week. He's 80-1. You're not going to see Jordan getting 80-1 much longer, but let's hope he gets his game going. Now, Tom Hoge, there you go. That's another one of your picks, as is Gary Woodland at 90-1. And I was able to get Gary at 100-1. So I'm sure you're still able to get him there. I thought Gary Woodland, I needed to wait with everything with his, his health and all. But now it looks like he's starting to get on a little bit of a run. And maybe those health concerns, you can look at that and say, okay, it's kind of in his rear view. But this is a really good golf course for him. And to get odds as big as that is a no-brainer. And you also, of course, went with Hoge.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, 2 guys that fit my consistent mold here of ball striker who can putt. And Gary Woodland, I got at 100 as well. I think you probably don't want to take less than 100, really, unless you might see his price come crashing down. But here locally in Las Vegas, I've actually seen as high as 110, maybe even 115. Those are probably a little bit tougher to find. But I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 110 to 100 is what you ought to be able to find readily available out there on Gary Woodland. Off to a solid start this season, 16th at the Sony Open, where he's won before, 22nd at Pebble Beach, where he's won the U.S. Open in 2019, and on here to Phoenix, where he won in 2018. And I mentioned, we've always known that Gary Woodland has been an excellent driver of the golf ball, probably his biggest strength. And like you touched on earlier with both Lucas Glover and Matthew Fitzpatrick, if you win a U.S. Open, you've got to be not only a great ball striker, but you've got to have a hot putter as well. Well, Gary Woodland has definitely had a hot putter as of late. In his last 5 starts, he has gained over a stroke on the field with the flat stick. And this was interesting. 11s are wild here, Greg. Over the last 36 rounds, Gary Woodland ranks 11th in this field for strokes gained ball striking, 11th in this field for hole proximity from 175 to 200 yards out, and 11th on the par 5s that measure 550 to 600 yards. So very high ranking in the field for a lot of key areas this week for Gary Woodland. And like you say, the current form looks good. A guy that has won at this golf course before. He's also finished top 5 at this golf course before. So why not at triple digits for Gary Woodland? And then Tom Hoge, kind of the same thing. 4th on tour. I mean, that's really the primary skill set for Tom Hoge and why he's successful on the PGA Tour is ball striking. 4th on tour last year in strokes gained approach. Over the last 36 rounds, he's 35th in this field for strokes gained putting on Bermuda grass. 8th back in January at the Sentry, comes off of a top 20 last week at Pebble, where he was 14th in that field for strokes gained approach and 2nd for driving accuracy. and multiple top 15s, top 10s, and top 25s at the correlated courses. So I didn't think 80-1 was too bad on a guy that has had success here in the past. And, because history typically repeats itself at this golf course, we expect him to have another good week here in 2025.
Okay, and we have just a few more long shots. Your top long shot is Taylor Moore at 100-1. Now, he was a kid that really looked like he was going to make his way, into maybe the top 20, the top 30. He was inside the top 50 late in 2023, and then something happened last year. His game was off completely. But so far this year, he has at least something going on now for the past several events. He was 7th at Amex, 22nd last week, and you like him this week at 100-1.
Yeah, you're right. It looks like maybe he has a little something going here with the way he has started 2025. And this was a guy kind of out of the blue that I hit for his one and only victory on the PGA Tour at the Valspar Championship in Florida. I think it was 2 years ago now. But
and one of my long shot picks is the one you beat, and that was Adam Schenk, the one he beat.
Yes, yeah. I remember that.
Yes.
But that is absolutely a ball striker's course. And once again, I sound like a broken record, a ball striker who can putt. Taylor Moore ranks 6th in this field over the last 36 rounds for strokes gained putting on Bermuda grass. And yes, he has traditionally been a ball striker. When he's at his best, the ball striking is pure. That led him to the victory at the Valspar Championship. And we've seen the form so far this season. 2 for 2 in cuts made here in Phoenix, 14th place finish here in 2023. 3 for 3 in cuts made at Bay Hill, finished runner-up at Memorial Park last season in Houston, and the 2 good finishes this year. So yeah, he's just a long bomb, triple digits. You might even find him higher than 100-1. But I think he's absolutely the player that makes sense for this golf course. And now that the form looks pretty decent, I thought he was worth a shot.
All right, and then the last 3 that I just threw in as big numbers, I threw in 251 shots, Christian Bezuidenhout, and also Jake Knapp, and then 250 is Schenk. I like the fact that Schenk has improved here over the last several appearances, a couple top 25s, his last 2 appearances, 25th at Farmers, 6th a couple of starts before that. He had a WD in between. And Schenk could be also one of those streaky players. So again, only because I'm getting 250-1. Same thing with Bezuidenhout, who was a big difference. He was +7 miscut the first appearance, -8 second appearance. So that's obviously a 15 stroke difference. And then you have Jake Knapp, who was 28th here last year, 33rd and 32nd his last 2 events. And let's not forget, Jake really got off to a nice start last year. And if you take a look at, and that's really when all of a sudden everybody wanted to know who the heck he was. His top 3 PGA results have all been between late January and early March, including his Mexico win. And Mexico is what we're going to see in a couple of weeks, of course, after the signature event. So yeah, so this is strictly just big numbers, guys. I figured just a few things that made sense. By the way, Christian was 7th at Bay Hill. I don't know if it was last year or the year before that. So anyway, so those are a few long shots that, again, if I did top 20 wagering, that's probably something that I would do with those guys myself. But it just, again, every week you just look, this is what's so great about the PGA Tours. Every week when we do this handicapping, there's just so many players to choose from. And even though there's only 3 of the top 14 ranked players in the world here, there's so many, like take Scotty Scheffler out. If Scotty doesn't win, there's so many players that can win. It's just, on one hand, it's hard, makes the handicapping hard, but on the other end, it's fun because that tells you can strike it if you hit the right guy at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you might look into those top 20 finish markets. Top 10 is a little too short for me. It's like I might as well just pick who's going to win it. Unless it's, say, Scotty Scheffler and the price is prohibitive. Maybe you play him top 10 or even top 5. But you might take a look at some of those top 20, even top 30 or top 40 finish position markets, because the reason I turned to it was I want to say this was about 5 years ago or so. We didn't have those ready available to us in Las Vegas. It was pretty much only offshore that you could find the finish position markets. Now, with sports betting, being legal all over the world, all over the country in America, these markets are readily available. But I turned to it, like I say, about 5-6 years ago because I was just playing outrights and head-to-head matchups, but I was just playing the outrights. And Greg, I had 8 guys that finished like top 10, runner up, like top 5. I had eight guys, and I was just pulling my hair out because
you had one of those moments, those defining handicapping moments that
I remember. It was when Rory McIlroy won the Players Championship.
Okay.
And who finished second? Jim Furyk. And I was on him at 125 to 1. And I'm like, I've done so well handicapping this golf event and came that close to winning it.
And got nothing for it.
But we got nothing for it. So that's when I said, you know what? I'm going to start playing all these guys top 20. And like I said, it's a little bit of hedge of your bet.
Sure.
And you risk more because it's obviously lower odds to finish anywhere between. But you might think about that because, I don't know how much money you've risked this week or how many units, whatever. But if one of them doesn't hit, it's a total loss.
Yep.
If you've got them all for a top 20 finish and a handful of them have a good week, you haven't lost everything.
No, it's an excellent idea, especially if you have enough, capital to work with. You might as well use it, like you said, at the worst case scenario, just to hedge. That's
why I bet the smallest amount on the outrights because that's the biggest needle in a haystack. But the top 20 finish, I will bet 2 or 3 times that amount. Because again, I think if you're handicapping the tournament well, you're obviously going to have a lot better chance of your guy finishing inside the top 20 or 30 than just being that one guy who wins the whole thing.
All right. So there you go. There's the picks again. And next week, it's going to get even better. Now, maybe not for entertainment purposes, but maybe so, because Scotty could, of course, dominate for the next 4 days and leave all of us just realizing, well, yeah, you see, you probably should have put all your money on Scotty this week. But anyway, hopefully, since we don't have Scotty, let's hope that he doesn't do that. But either way, next week is a signature event. And then the only player that we don't know if who's going to be there out of the top players is still Xander Schauffele. So, other than that, everybody else is going to be there. And of course, Rory, the thing with Rory after what he did this past weekend is going to be, was that just a really good week from Rory? And we know if Rory can have a really good week, that's what it looks like. Or is this maybe going to be one of those years that, because he's still in the prime of his career and he's not going to have many of those prime careers left. He's older than Scotty. Is this going to be a situation because he's still looking to win a Masters? So is this going to be, and he hasn't won a major in a while, is this going to be one of those years that Rory kind of can define himself once again? We'll see.
Well, it's interesting about Rory McIlroy as far as the odds for the Masters. He was pretty much across the board 10 to 1 prior to winning last week at Pebble. And I didn't really see the books move him a whole lot. Most of the time when a guy wins a tournament prior to the Masters, the odds shift pretty drastically. 10 to 1 so short to begin with, I didn't see a whole lot of movement. But as we are now a day or two past the result, it looks like some people have gotten involved because I've seen a few shops now dealing less than 10 to 1 on Rory to win the Masters. Also very interesting for next week. You mentioned a signature event, but not the Genesis Invitational like we're used to at Riviera Country Club because of the fires in the Los Angeles area. We're going back to Torrey Pines, where we were successful in landing on Harris English. Hopefully history repeats itself there. But as far as Rory and Scotty, those are two guys that almost never play Torrey Pines. They were not there a couple weeks ago. Rory's been there, I don't know if it's even a handful of times. He was there for the 2021 U.S. Open when Jon Rahm won. I assume Scotty was probably there as well. But the point is, and it's kind of the same with Pebble, even though Rory went on to win. Yeah. Scotty and Rory, you don't see them too often at Torrey Pines or Pebble Beach. So I'm guessing right now that they're not going to make my card because I'm going to go with guys that are more familiar with that golf course on a regular basis.
And again, it just shows you that the great players, they could have, like Rory. He had 2 appearances, I believe, at Pebble. Neither was good. But the greatest players, it doesn't affect them. Look, the law of averages tell you to stay away, especially at that number. But every once in a while, it's going to bite you. And Rory bit a lot of people. I don't think, even on one and dones, I can't imagine many people were betting on Rory last week.
No. And it's like exactly what you say. I think Rory McIlroy is a player that can win anywhere, anytime, anyhow. But at the same time, I don't know if Augusta National is a course that truly fits his golf game.
Yeah,
the ideal, the A game of Rory McIlroy is not necessarily the blueprint for Augusta National. But if it's the A game of Rory McIlroy, like you and I both say, he can win anywhere, anytime, doesn't matter.
And he puts himself into so much pressure as well that you do wonder if he's got a lead going into the weekend, which you need to be up at the top at the Masters. You have to be like one of those last couple of groups going into the weekend. There's no come from behind winners at the Masters, as strange as you would think that sounds. It's just the deal that if Rory's in that position, can he handle it? And that's something that I think we'd all love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It would, to see Rory slip on a green jacket would be incredible. I had money on him a couple years ago. I think he missed the cut. He was coming in tremendous form. And I was like, okay, maybe the timing's right. I don't know. At now less than 10-1. I don't know if he'll get my money this year, but I'd love to see him do it.
Yeah, we'll see. Exactly. Because 10-1, it is kind of low. All right. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up. We'll be back next week to preview another signature event on the PGA Tour. So don't forget to leave any comments, questions, anything at all that you want us to either respond to or react to, anything like that. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss one of our shows. Thanks for tuning in. And again, also check out golf.com because Brady's weekly article is already out as we showed you earlier in the show. And enjoy the golf.